All right, welcome in. We are live for our first ever Maize and Brew six pack. I am Jared Stormer of maizeandbrew.com. You might know me from Out of the Blue, just a delightful podcast. With me is a man from another delightful podcast, Michael Smeltzer, formerly of Big House Bleachers, now of the Blue Wall with Michael Smeltzer at Wolverine Cron on Twitter. The man himself. How are you, Michael? Thanks for joining me.
Man, I am better than great, you sexy animal, Jared Stormer. Thank you for having me on.
This is the first one. This is the trial run. We haven't done many of these, but we're national champions. We decided that it's time to take this up another level. There'll be a lot more of these. We've got one coming that's planned for right after week one. As soon as we wrap up with Fresno State, you and I are going to hop on, start doing these. So we want people to like, share, subscribe, start coming to the Maize and Brew YouTube channel a little bit more. This will be kind of our introduction to that. We're doing a six pack, and you might ask yourself, what does that even mean? Well, let me tell you, a six pack, we're just touching on six topics. We're going to move through these pretty quickly. This is kind of, in my opinion, the turning of the page from the off season. Is that how you look at like the Big Ten media days? It's like, it's time to turn the page a little bit from last season, as much as we're not ready to do that as sitting national champs.
Yeah, this is kind of getting over the hump of that dreadful period between seasons. And this year wasn't, before we hit record, I was telling you, this year wasn't as bad. They were riding the high from being national champs. We kind of just floated through the offseason and boom, football is here.
Oh, yeah. I was just whimsically walking through a field, plucking flowers off of trees. You couldn't hurt me this entire summer as we are national champions. And look, we still got that for a little while, but it is becoming time to turn the page a little bit. It's Big Ten Media Day, so we will touch on that. Let's start there with the first of the six pack. I don't really necessarily want to talk too much about what was said at Big Ten Media Days. It's a lot of prepared remarks. It's a lot of we're going to outwork everyone. It's a lot of, everybody looks great at this position. We're certainly not going to come out and hear that Alex Orji's running the wing T. Like, that is not what we got at Big Ten Media Days. So I want to talk big picture here. This is a pretty critical Big Ten Media Day in the sense that it's the first one since expansion. So big picture here, what is your overall take on this expansion and chances that this is going to dilute the product? Like, does this dilute the product moving forward, or is there a chance this is actually better? Like, talk me into optimism for expansion being a good thing.
Well, I was feeling good, Jared. We got these four athletically and scholastically historical programs heading into the Big Ten. I was feeling optimistic. Like, maybe these guys can hang with the quality that we have in the Big Ten. And then I heard Deshaun Foster, head UCLA coach, get up there and fumble through his introductory presser. I mean, this guy sounded like Joe Biden trying to explain string theory to us, man. It was not a pretty sight. But joking aside, I mean, UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington, those are pretty good programs to add. I'm excited about conference realignment. I think having it come with the 12-team playoff, having Michigan win the national championship of like the old structure, it's kind of poetic, and I'm just ready for a new day in college football. We got NIL, we got conference realignment. I'm all for it. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, UCLA making an early bid to be the new Rutgers. Like, now that Rutgers is kind of respectable, and the Deshaun Foster remarks, like, tough beat for our guy, for Deshaun Foster coming in. So
Painful,
can only go up
so
for UCLA. It's saying the LA from UCLA stands for Los Angeles, and I'm like taking notes. I'm like, fascinating stuff. It can only go up from there. Look, your overall point is valid. I think that it should be looked at as like a good thing to add competition. It's going to make things more difficult in the sense that the schedules are going to be a lot more challenging, but we're also expanding to 12 teams. So maybe that kind of evens it out. Maybe there's an extra loss in there every year, but that extra loss doesn't end up mattering because we've expanded to 12. What I don't like is the opportunity to play Ohio State 3 times. I just think that that is blasphemous and shouldn't come up. That is now on the table. It probably will happen if, the world is allowed to exist for another couple hundred years. The laws of luck tell us something like that could come up. So I'm not huge on that. But aside from that, yeah, man, like it's great. I mean, now we have Michigan, Oregon, Michigan, Washington, Michigan, USC games like this to look forward to every year. So I'm willing to be open minded about it. So there's already discussions now about Florida State joining a league. Would Clemson join? Is there more expansion on the horizon? I think those are kind of the questions moving forward.
The most beautiful part is just the disintegration of the Big Ten West. I mean, we were all just sick of the Big Ten West. Watching Iowa compete for a conference championship every single year is just, I mean, just disgusting. And so from my perspective, that's the best element of this whole thing, is that they did what they should have done from the beginning, is threw all the teams in a bucket and said, you know what? The top 2 teams are going to play for it every year. It's the way it should be.
Number 2 on the 6-pack, and this is my favorite of the 6-pack, much like the second beer of a 6-pack really hits the best. Kirk Campbell and Sharon Moore with ringing endorsements of the quarterback play, and Alex Orji in particular. So as time goes on, the more and more I'm starting to open my heart to an Alex Orji-led offense. If you listen to Out of the Blue, I have not necessarily been the biggest proponent of that. I think we need to push the ball a little bit further downfield. So the question that I wanted to pose is, how much downfield passing is enough? And I've got a couple player comps here. I know that you had some as well. Can we put a number to what we need to hit in order to be successful? And successful being make it back into the college playoff. I'll go ahead and set the bar at getting into the 12.
Yeah. Are you saying 12 touchdowns? Is that what you're...
No, getting into the top 12 teams, into the college football playoff.
Oh,
like, if that's what we're considering success, what kind of a season does Alex Orji need to have, with obviously like a monumentally impressive defense, one of the best defenses ever to take the field at Michigan?
well, I'm starting to feel like, listen, if you're going to be the QB1 at a school like Michigan, defending national champ, that's going to have one of the toughest schedules in the country, play some of the top defenses in the country, is it realistic to think that you can run gadget plays and screen passes and quarterback runs and Donovan Edwards runs all the way to a 11-1 record? Probably not. If you're going to be the quarterback at Michigan, I think you got to get the ball downfield. Now, the question is how much downfield, how often, and how accurate. And I loved your Braxton Miller kind of, you were looking at like the bar of like, okay, his style of play. You know, I came across another player comp that's interesting, and take a ride with me for a second, because you're going to scream at me when I first say this name. But when you let it settle in, it kind of makes sense here. So a man by the name of Tim Tebow won a Heisman with the Florida Gators years ago, right? And Tim Tebow was an interesting guy. He could throw the ball. I wouldn't say he was the most accurate downfield passer. He had some arm strength and he could hit some targets.
No.
He was about 6'3", about 230, 240 pounds. He relied heavily on speedy receivers like Percy Harvin, yards after catch. And so you start looking at, he had the broad shoulders, he was kind of built. He was freakishly athletic. You look at a guy like Alex Orji. Now, am I saying he's going to win the Heisman and do what Tim Tebow did? Of course, I'm not saying that, but there's some similarities in game style and the way he might be able to win at Michigan. You got Samaj Morgan and Tyler Morris and Freddie Moore. That's kind of the Percy Harvin type. Tim Tebow had Aaron Hernandez. We got Colston Loveland, maybe Marlon Klein in there. And you start to look at, okay, 6'3", 230, 240 pounds. This guy might be able to play like that. He might be able to pass for 18 or 19 touchdowns and run for 900 yards and get in the end zone 10 or 12 times. You know, that could be a winning recipe.
Very interesting comp, both 6'3", 236 as listed. So I want to look at one particular stat here, yards per attempt. Obviously, Tim Tebow put up insane numbers. I mean, with the 32 touchdown passing season to 6 interceptions in 2007, one of his Heisman years, also ran for 900 yards that year. But he was in those seasons as a freshman, 10.8 yards per attempt. His 2007 season, the Heisman season, 9.4, 9.2, 9.2 yards per attempt. That is actually pretty solid. I mean, compare
Mm-hmm.
that with some of the running quarterbacks that we've seen recently. I'm not a huge fan of the Tim Tebow comp because you're basically choosing the absolute best outcome of anyone that's ever been a primarily running quarterback with great help around him. You mentioned Percy Harvin in there. So I went with Braxton Miller. Braxton Miller, another guy that you look at, not necessarily known as a deep ball guy or a guy that's going to put the ball into tight windows. How about Braxton Miller in 2012 and 2013? Both years he went for over 2,000 yards. Nothing crazy. He had the 24 touchdowns in 2013, but he was at 8.2 yards per attempt. That's not a huge number. And honestly, like there's been some really not great quarterbacks that are just around that at 8.2 yards. You look at 8.2 and you think, okay, that's a middle of the road quarterback, but that worked for that Ohio State team. So I'm looking at Braxton Miller, and obviously Braxton Miller's rushing yards were incredible too. I've got Braxton Miller. So in 2013, 171 rushes for 1,068 yards and 12 touchdowns, but then threw for that 2,124. That would honestly be good enough. Those are monster numbers if Alex Orji can get anywhere from there. But with Braxton Miller at that, and then I was also looking Milrow that we very recently had eyes on. Jalen Milrow last year, 187 for 284. He completed 66% of his passes. His yards per attempt was at 10, though. That's because of that downfield threat that they had. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm putting a number to this. I think that his yards per attempt needs to be above 8, and he needs to be above 60% completion. Those are the two numbers that I'm looking at. And like by week 3, by week 4, if he's our starter and I'm not seeing those numbers, I don't know that that's going to be good enough for just how challenging this schedule is. So, I mean, these are obviously arbitrary numbers, and we have a defense that can certainly make up for a lot. Like this is an otherworldly defense. That's for another podcast. But what do you think about those numbers? Putting him kind of in between the Braxton Miller, Jalen Milrow kind of mold.
I love that. And to be clear, I'm not saying he's going to have a Tim Tebow like
I
season.
know.
He's one of the
I got
greatest
you.
players in the history of college football. But I think right around 8 or even 9 is achievable. But the reason why I think it's achievable is exactly what I was saying earlier. I can envision, I think about Tyler Morris in the Rose Bowl or some of these Samaj Morgan touchdowns that we've seen where it's like, I can see these little speedy receivers crossing routes 5 or 7 yards up the field, catching it and then burning, for 30, 40, 50 yards. And so whereas some quarterbacks, they might have a 50-yard touchdown that goes 40 yards in the air. I think Orji could have some 50-yard touchdowns that go 6 or 7 yards in the air. And that's something that we could see a lot of. And then consistency with Donovan Edwards catching balls, and Colston Loveland, all the tight ends, but especially Colston Loveland catching balls. I could see a world that exists where he's above 8 yards per attempt, and Michigan is winning games and Alex Orji is successful. I do have to say, though, might not be the most popular thing to say. I'm not sure if he's the guy. At that position. I'm just not sure. And I think that's fair, right? That's not Alex Orji hate. Why would we be sure? We haven't seen any of it, right? Jim Harbaugh never put him in passing situations in gameplay. Where I'm interested is, is this guy above 800 rushing yards this year? Because he could easily get those types of numbers.
Yeah, I think those numbers will be way more achievable for him. The number that I'm looking at is that 60% completion rate. That's it. I just haven't seen enough to say that, like, with the schedule that we've got, that he's going to be able to dissect defenses. And you're going to have to get some big hitters in there in order to get that yards per attempt up. Does he have enough of those big plays in there? And I think that they will against some of the lesser competition, but Texas, Oregon, USC a little improved, definitely Ohio State. On defense, they're going to have some challenges at corner. So those are the numbers that I'm watching. I'm starting to come around on Alex Orji being the guy, but I'm not quite there yet. So just opening my heart to it. Let's keep it pushing. Number 3 on the 6-pack. I'm starting to also open my heart to this. I have been a Giovanni El Hadi guy for years. Andy Bailey, my co-host, is the same way. I think it's time to open our hearts to Miles Hinton being the lead dog on this offensive line. And Gio was dealing with some stuff early on in the season. I haven't heard much as to his availability. Hopefully he can go because I still think he's going to be a dog. But it sounds like Miles Hinton might be the best player on this offensive line, which is great because he's projected to be a left tackle. So do you think that that's the hierarchy right now?
Yeah, I see them both starting, and let me just share with you what I think is the starting lineup, and then we can get into hierarchy a little bit. So I think Greg Crippen is the center. I think El Hadi and Hinton hold down the left side at guard and tackle respectively. Then I think it's probably Andrew Gentry and and Prebe. I forgot to say Prebe on the right side. And so that's my five. The more that I don't know, I'm not basing this on anything other than kind of the internal confidence that Miles Hinton carries amongst himself. Like when in the little interviews I've seen, he does kind of seem like that dude, and he kind of seems like he knows he's that dude. So I would say he's 1A on that offensive line.
It certainly seems like it. And if you're going to have a best player, I mean, either center or left tackle, probably where I'd put him, one of those two positions. You can do a lot with that. I've liked him. My co-host Andy wasn't as big of a fan. I think that his pass pro is great. I'd like to see him become a run grader, though. If he's a run grader this year and his pass pro is where it's at, that's like a first-round draft pick. Like, go ahead and add him to the list of potential first-round draft picks if he's able to have an excellent season at left tackle, just because of the position he plays, the pedigree of the player, his great bloodlines in the family, not only his brother, but I believe his dad played as well. And just he can move. He's large. So I'm in on it, man. I'm in on it. And like whoever this quarterback ends up being, having that cemented and being like, yo, we've got an all Big Ten left tackle. That's a great place to start for an offensive line, just with a lot of new faces.
Most important position. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, outside of the quarterback position, the left tackle is got to be the most important position on the offense.
All right. For the two of you that are here, this was our first one. We knew numbers would be sparse. This is going to be a new thing, but like, share, subscribe. Let your friends know that we're doing these. These will become a little bit more commonplace, but we'll also release these afterwards. You can watch it later on. You don't have to be here as we go live. Number 3 in the 6-pack. The linebackers. Did a podcast on this the other week. We were rating the position groups as far as strength. Is linebacker low key the position that we should be the most worried about, in the sense that we're one injury away from really dire straits there? Like, we have a great top 2 with Barham and Houseman, but what do you feel about the depth post those two guys?
It wouldn't be a bad idea to hit the portal late, maybe, and like see if anybody
got any more of them linebackers.
Yeah, floating around out there. But we also, though, we're a little bit spoiled at linebacker in recent years. You know, Michael Barrett and Junior Colson holding it down the way that they did, and then of course Josh Ross, which seems like eons ago. Just a couple years ago, we had Josh Ross on the team. We've been a little spoiled there. Barham and Houseman could be the best 1-2 linebacker combo in the conference. And so then you look at just depth, right? And I think any team, you could say, well, if they have an injury at starting linebacker, it's going to be tough. I don't know enough about the other teams in the conference or in the country what their linebacker depth looks like. But Jimmy Rolder, we've seen him get burned a few times. Hood appears to be maybe that third guy that we're looking at there. And I just want to reference when Jim Harbaugh said Mason Graham was a gift from the football gods. I know Mason Graham's not a linebacker. I'm not saying that, but I have that feeling about Cole Sullivan, right? That Cole Sullivan is just a gift from the football gods. That he just like floated into our lap as this like low profile recruit. When I saw him in the spring game, because I was worried about him, he looked thin. I was like, man, this guy's not ready for college football. And I saw the way he was flying around the field, and I was like, you know what? You put 10 or 15 pounds on this kid, and he's up there. He's ready to go. So Cole Sullivan might be, waiting to make some plays for us.
I'm not quite there yet on old Sully. I mean, what an elite linebacker name. It's a built-in nickname. I'm excited about it. But like you said, he needs 10, 15 more pounds. And that was a spring game. And I need to hear about it from the coaches that it's happening week after week. And I don't necessarily want to trot Cole Sullivan out against Texas because
No,
Houseman
no.
can't go. I think that's like tough. I think we're in dire straits. So
You got Micah
I
Pollard,
like the top
Samaj
move.
Bridgman.
Uh, shit. Didn't Bridgman transfer?
Oh fuck, man! There we go. Yeah.
What's your
I'm still
language, sir?
I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that. We're live on YouTube, guys. Excuse
You're
me.
good, bro. You're good, man. But yeah, I think Bridgman transferred. So yeah, it's just a position group that I'm a little bit less high on outside of the strength of the top two. So we could use an addition there or hope your guy Cole Sully hits. Number 5 on the 6-pack, the Stallions Netflix series. It's got to be mentioned. Are you even going to watch it? Should we watch it? Should Michigan fans be excited about this? And what is the vibe? Are Michigan fans excited about this? Like, I'd love to hear. I have only spoken to a select few Michigan fans. I don't think we're all going to be crowding around the television to watch this, right?
I tell you what, I'm 100% going to watch this.
Yeah, we have jobs to do.
But I mean, like, I have to watch this. But
Right.
am I excited about this? No. That was the last thing I wanted to see is a headline that says, that Connor Stallions tells all in a Netflix documentary. I mean, we haven't even been handed a notice of allegations yet. You know what I mean? Like, please pump the brakes. Netflix moves much faster than the NCAA. I'm hoping. And Dave Portnoy actually alluded to the fact that perhaps this is a little bit of a Michigan propaganda style situation where it's like his side of the story, and we're kind of protecting the image of Michigan in this thing. So, but I don't know. Netflix knows what sells, and what sells is controversy. So I'm a little nervous about it.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much in there. My guess would be it's just like you said, him telling his side of the story. Big nothing burger. I can't imagine that he comes out now and throws everybody under the bus. The biggest Michigan fan, self-proclaimed of all time. He did write a manifesto, which usually is reserved for bombers and people that have like taken root in a sniper tower somewhere in the clock tower. But look, I'll watch it because I need to, but excited is not the word. And maybe we'll learn something, but more than likely we will not. All right. Last part of the 6-pack, number 6. Here's some free money for you, for the 3 of you that stuck it out for the first live stream on Maize and Brew. God bless you, the 3 of you people. You're all getting Christmas cards. Early money against Fresno State, 20.5. That number has not changed despite the fact that Fresno State's coach has stepped down. So they will be having an interim coach, probably going to promote within the program from there. But the line has not changed. I'm telling you, I bet Michigan covering. I don't care who the quarterback is. It is at night. It is maybe the best defense that's ever played at Michigan. I think that is easy money. I think Michigan covers handedly. If it's Tuttle, if it's Warren, we'll probably see a couple of them. Fresno State is no slouch. They've turned over a lot. It's just too much of an ask. It is too much of an ask. So Michigan to cover week 1 against Fresno State. Book it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I do think that it's fair for people betting in Vegas and all of that to consider the fact that Michigan did lose, 14 to the draft, 18 playmakers overall, head coach, defensive line coach, secondary coach, defensive court, and so you start stacking up all the things that have turned over. I think that's why the media is lower on Michigan, but those of us that know the culture of Michigan and what it looks like and what it feels like in there and the players that are coming up, I think I would feel a little bit better about that line being 21.5 than 20.5, just because Michigan's going to win by at least 3 touchdowns. Like, even if Michigan struggles through that game, Michigan's going to win by 3 touchdowns. And so I'm with you. I'm taking the over on that spread.
Yeah, I already bet it. I am in on that. Any final thoughts about Big Ten Media Day, anything that we discussed, anything in general. You want to plug your new show, which you should do here and now.
Yeah, I would love if you guys would just check out The Blue Wall with Michael Smeltzer. It's my new project. I'm interviewing players, recruits, coaches, analysts. It's a lot of fun. I'm passionate about it. You can also find me on X, the app formerly known as Twitter, Wolverine Chronicle. It's at Wolverine Cron is the tag. Maize n Brew is just an amazing, classy situation. I appreciate you guys always having me on. I'm not part of the Maize n Brew team, but I'm Maize n Brew adjacent at this point.
Yeah.
I've rubbed elbows with you guys, and so I love you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Go Blue as always.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not on Maize n Brew, but you're like one of the neighbors that gets invited to every barbecue. Like we're hanging out all the time. Adjacent is the right word. And I'm excited for your new show, man. I saw the cover. It looked like you were about to give lectures to Christian dads. I just love the look of it. You look a very professional look. Yeah, I'm excited for it, man. So I'm going to go check out that Jasper Parker interview that you got as soon as we get off of here. Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. Like I said, we'll be doing a lot more of these. So just something to be looking forward to, particularly post game, I think is something that we'll be doing. You and I will be doing one for Bleacher Report post Fresno State, many of those as we can do. But I think Andy Bailey, my co-host, and I from Out of the Blue are going to be trying to do these. So the Maize n Brew YouTube channel is making a comeback, baby. So make sure that you subscribe. All right, that's going to do it for us. I'm Jared. That's Michael. Thank you again, sir. Remember, wherever you go, go blue. We're out.